Welcome to episode 48 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Laws Guy. It's December 18, 1956. In Paris, the offices of L'Equipe are humming. Newspapers are being set, headlines argued over. On the sports desk, a former fullback and wartime pilot named Gabriel Hanot is about to launch another of his big ideas. A year earlier, Hanot has used L'Equipe to push for a pan-European club competition, the European Champions Clubs Cup, after fuming at English claims that Wolves were champions of the world for beating Honved on a muddy night at Molineux. We talked about that in episode 43 a few days ago. The campaign worked. The first European Cup final has already been played in Paris, Real Madrid beating Reims. Now Hanot and his colleague Jacques Ferrand want something else, a way to crown the best footballer in Europe each year, a prize that can live on the mantelpiece, in newspapers and arguments in cafes. They call it the Ballon d'Or, the Golden Ball. On this day in 1956, L'Equipe publishes in France Football, volume number 561, the result of the very first vote. The winner by 3 points is a 41-year-old right-winger from Blackpool, Stanley Matthews. Behind him, Alfredo Di Stéfano of Real Madrid and Raymond Kopa of Reims. In today's episode, we'll tell the story of how Hanot and L'Equipe created the Ballon d'Or. Look at why Matthews beat Di Stéfano and Kopa in the first vote. Follow the unusual way he actually received the trophy, and zoom out to how the Ballon d'Or evolved from a European newspaper poll into a global made-for-TV spectacle and what it means in a team sport. Mid-1950s football is in a strange place. The World Cups of 1950 and 54 have given us Maracanazo and the mighty Magyars. The next World Cup is still 2 years away in Sweden. The Olympics, supposedly the big global stage in 1956, are dominated by so-called state amateurs from the socialist bloc, players who are professionals in all but name, but barred from the new European professional competitions. Europe's club game, though, is exploding. The European Cup is only in its second season. Travel is easier, TV is growing, and there's a sense that football needs new continental stories and stars. Hanot understands that. As a player, he had captained France. As a journalist, he has already pushed through one revolution with the European Cup. Now he wants a prize that links this new cross-border club scene to the newspaper that covers it. The rules he draws up in 1956 are simple and very different from today's. Only European players are eligible. They must be playing for a European club. A panel of football writers from across Western Europe, one from each country, will vote, ranking their top 5, and points are awarded 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. This is a European journalistic view of merit, not a FIFA decree. It also explains why the first decade of winners is essentially a roll call of European forwards: Di Stéfano, Kopa, Luis Suarez, Denis Law, Eusebio, and George Best. In 1956, the shortlist is full of post-war glamour names: Di Stéfano and Kopa, Manchester United's young leader Duncan Edwards, Hungary's Ferenc Puskás and Sandor Kocsis, Sweden's Gunnar Nordahl, and Uruguay's Juan Schafino at Milan. Yet, when the votes are counted, the man at the top is already a legend from another era: Stanley Matthews. So who is Matthews in 1956 and why does he win? By then, he is myth more than prospect. Born in 1915, he made his league debut for Stoke in the 1930s. Wowed crowds for England either side of war, moved to Blackpool, and in 1953 inspired the FA Cup final comeback against Bolton that will forever be called the Matthews Final. He is 41, still playing top-flight football on the wing, the wizard of the dribble, still beating fullbacks with feints and body swerves, still living the famously ascetic lifestyle: orange juice, skipping, beach runs, that lets him go on and on. Opponents talk about being hypnotized by his rhythm. Kids in Britain copy his laced-up boots and long sleeves on park pitches. He is also extremely famous. In the mid-50s, most European fans have only sporadic access to live foreign football, but they know Matthews from wartime tours, England games, newsreels, and magazines. He is seen as a gentleman professional, the artist who has given a lifetime to the game. Set against him are two men who embody football's future. Alfredo Di Stéfano, born in Buenos Aires, nationalized by Spain, is the all-action centre-forward of Real Madrid's new European empire. In 1956, he has just led Madrid to the inaugural European Cup, scoring in the 4-3 final against Reims and becoming the symbol of a club that will define the competition. Raymond Kopa, small, slippery, and technically supreme, is Reims' playmaker, the man who pulls Real Madrid into a 2-0 and then a 3-2 scare in that same final. Within a year, he will sign for Madrid and link up with Di Stéfano and white. If you were purely rewarding the standout performer of 1955-56, Stéfano is hard to argue against. Madrid have won La Liga and the European Cup, and he is their heart and brain. But the journalists voting that winter clearly have a longer horizon in mind. Matthews topped the ballot with 47 points. Stéfano has 44, Kopa 33. The gap is narrow, but symbolically huge. You can see several forces at work. Respect for longevity, a kind of lifetime achievement award for Matthews' 20 years at the top. A lingering prestige of the England winger in continental eyes, built up since the 1930s. And perhaps some unease about simply rubber stamping Real Madrid and the politics around them so soon after the European Cup's creation. So when L'Équipe goes to press on December 18, 1956, the front page story is that Europe's first football of the year, the first Ballon d'Or, is a 41-year-old from Blackpool. The way Matthews actually receives the award underlines how new all this is. The result is announced in the paper in December, but the trophy itself, the golden ball on a plinth, is not yet in his hands. That moment has to be organized, and broadcasters are keen to share it. On the evening of January 2, 1957, Matthews travels from Blackpool to the BBC studios in Manchester. In London, Peter Dimmock, a presenter on the weekly programme Sportsview, sits in a separate BBC studio. In Paris, L'Équipe arranges his own studio link-up. At 9 p.m., live on Sportsview, they bridge those 3 points on the map, Manchester, London and Paris. Peter Dimmock speaks to the French journalist on the line. Matthews sits in front of the cameras in Manchester, hearing in real time that he's been chosen by Europe's press as the continent's football of the year, expressing his thanks and talks about happy memories of matches played on the continent. In that Paris studio sits Gabriel Hanot, the man who dreamed the award up, watching his newspaper's idea becoming a cross-border television event. The physical trophy follows a little later. Contemporary photos show Matthews, suited and smiling, finally holding the golden ball in his hands. Today, Ballon d'Or ceremonies are carefully choreographed TV galas. Back then, this was all improvised. Phone lines, grainy black and white pictures, a trophy making its way from a Paris office to a winger by the Irish Sea. From that first Matthews-Di Stéfano vote, the Ballon d'Or grows with the game. For almost 40 years, it remains a European award in the strict sense. Only Europeans playing for European clubs are eligible. That's why the likes of Pelé and Garrincha and Maradona never win it. They're simply not in the frame. In 1995, the rules change. Now any player at a European club can win. That opens the door to Josué at Milan, then to the wave of South American and African stars transforming the Champions League. From 2007, the scope widens again. It becomes a global Player of the Year prize, regardless of where you play, and for a few years it's even merged with FIFA's own award. The gala moves from newspaper columns to a stage show, red carpets, tuxedos, social media countdowns, carefully scripted interviews. At its core, though, the Ballon d'Or is still what it was in 1956. Journalists ranking players, then arguing about it forever. And it still raises the same awkward questions that lurked even on day one. Football is a team sport. How comfortable are we really with pretending that one player in one season is the best? From the beginning, voters lean heavily towards forwards and attacking midfielders, the players who score, dribble and appear in newsreels. Matthews, Di Stéfano and Kopa fit that pattern perfectly. Over the decades, defenders and goalkeepers occasionally break through. Franz Beckenbauer, Lothar Matthäus, Fabio Cannavaro, Leo Yashin as the only goalkeeper ever to win. But there are exceptions. The water carriers we talked about in our Dinosaur episode, number 33 on December 3rd, the screening midfielders, the organizers who rarely score, almost never get close. Even when teams are clearly more than the sum of their parts, like Sacchi's Milan or Guardiola's Barcelona, it is Van Basten, Messi or another star who takes home the golden ball. You can argue that this is inevitable. Awards gravitate towards the spectacular. But looking back to 1956, you can also see that the Ballon d'Or has always been about more than goals. It's about stories. Matthews' win isn't just about his dribbling that year. It's about the narrative of a lifelong artist finally being crowned at 41. Di Stefano's later wins and Kopa's in 1958 are about Real Madrid and Reims becoming symbols of a new European age. Later, the long Messi-Cristiano Ronaldo duel will be about an era defined by two outliers pushing each other to impossible numbers. The Ballon d'Or doesn't just reward individual brilliance, it frames how we remember eras. So what does that first Ballon d'Or tell us, looking back from today? It tells us that by 1956, Europe is ready to think of football in continental terms, clubs, cups, players ranked across borders, and that Gabriel Hanot is one of the architects of that mental map. It tells us that football culture already loves a good story, the eternal winger from Blackpool beating the glamorous centre forward of Real Madrid and the playmaker of Reims by 3 votes. It tells us that even in a team sport, we are drawn to the idea that somewhere out there in any given year, there's one man at the very top, even if that choice says as much about our priorities and our nostalgia as it does about pure performance. On this day, 1956, L'Équipe put a name to that idea for the first time. They called it the Ballon d'Or, and they wrote Stanley Matthews next to it. That's all for episode 48 of OTD, the day Gabriel Hanot's latest big idea crowned Stan the Man, and the age of individual awards in world football truly began. If you got memories or views of the Ballon d'Or, favorite winners, great injustices, forgotten names on early ballots, then email us at otd@17lawsguide.com. Subscribe and leave us a 5-star review so the algorithm can send more ranking obsessives our way. Tomorrow, in episode 49, we head to 2003 and the night Cienciano of Cusco stunned South America by winning the Copa Sudamericana, Peru's first international club trophy. Stay tuned and see you then.